if you're a Protestant, however you stack the deck of your synapses and decide that's a personality, you are feeling alienated from your labor because you are being alienated from your labor. That's not a subjective experience. It is an objective phenomenon, and the body responds as it would, because having your surplus value expropriated is inherently alienating. It feels bad. You're not in control of your life. You're not in control of your livelihood. It creates hostility, resentment, and the sense of frustrated powerlessness. And that's true of whatever you believe on your surface of your mind. However much of a real, true believing capitalist you think you are, you're still having that alienation. And ideology is what you use to direct the resentment and hostility you feel. And at base, class consciousness is just people comparing notes about their sense of alienation. It's about people in the same workplace working closely saying, hey, our boss is such a piece of shit. You think the boss sucks too? Oh, God, he's awful. Oh, you know what? I was just thinking that. I didn't know if anybody else thought that either. And you just all find out that, oh, we all have the same source of alienation and angst. We all are feeling bad for the same reasons. We know who's responsible. And it's the guy taking our fucking labor. And that's how unions begin. It's just people comparing notes at their workplace about their feeling of exploitation. Now, Americans, especially after World War II, and that's when our modern conspiracy culture was formed, thanks to mass media and the suburbanization, we lost touch with each other as workers. We stopped comparing notes. The big factories that have always been the engines of the working class, wherever they sprout, broken up, shipped to other countries, shipped to right-to-work states, even before that. Working class communities broke up with urban renewal, segregation, and suburbanization. Mass media filling the void left by socialization. And instead of socializing with your fellow workers, you're socializing with actors and performers, all of whom are on the side of capital and are reproducing capitalist notions for your consumption. That all fills the space where that conversation once was that leads to class consciousness. And because of this, American workers, they can only process their alienation internally. They can only ask their own self what's going on. They are ill-equipped to identify the real cause of the distress because they don't have the notes to compare. They can't talk to others and make these conclusions. All they have is their own single perception and their own head full of pre-existing notions. Their subjective experience, filtered through a lifetime of personal prejudices, religious belief, and incredibly crucially exposure to that mass media I was talking about, that takes the place of collective note-taking. And so that turns our alienation into a story, like the stories we watch in movies and TV. Stories with beginning and middle and end, identifiable villains and heroes, sense, reassurance, immortality, really, because you're at every part of the story. You're there. At no point do you die as the person observing it. And that's why conspiracy theory is inherently reactionary, and it really can't be used for leftist ends, because that is antithetical to keeping yourself in the dream. To keeping your ordered universe sense together. People say, go to the flow. Just use the stories to point to the real enemy. But the thing is, they will always replace capitalism with something else. I mean, look at Pizzagate. That's the perfect example, because you guys know I am on the hobby horse, and I think Pizzagate is fundamentally correct in its contours about elite child predation. But the actual theory of Pizzagate, it's all built on just brain detritus, just reactionary cultural anxieties about degeneracy and its relationship to the Democratic Party, just personal prejudices, local bias curdling into this thing that totally taints it. And so Trump's hand in the real life Pizzagate, fucking Jeffrey Epstein, is totally ignored. Unwinding all the way back to unwinding all those premises is way harder than I think appealing to people on a material basis is. So I'd rather really try to hit people in the breadbasket than try to go all the way back to try to deprogram and debug all those lines of cultural code. Because, I mean, take a look at the evidentiary gap between what we know about Pizzagate crimes and we know about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. In Jeffrey Epstein's case, we have dozens of not only witnesses, but victims who have testified under oath about what he did to them, who have given them information that only someone who was intimately familiar with him could have had. one of the girls who he abused, when they searched his house, they found one of her high school report cards in his fucking house. You have victims, you have evidence, and you have Donald Trump's name on a fucking flight log and a quote bragging about how much he likes partying with Jeffrey Epstein, how much Jeffrey Epstein likes young girls. Who are the victims at Pizzagate? There's not a single purported victim in Pizzagate, except for Madeleine McCann, which is just a total wackadoodle flyer on their part. There's no victims. There's no evidence at all. It's all just imputed. It's what it is. It's decoding. It's decoding the messages in the DNC emails, like you're fucking using your decoder ring to find out if you should drink your Ovaltine in a 50s kids radio show. It just defangs the whole thing. And now take Alex Jones before he became just a boring Republican. From the days when he was a real live wire, his famous line is, "They're putting chemicals in the water to turn the frogs gay." Of course, that's hilarious, right? Everyone has a good fun with that. That's stupid. His thinking is that there's some sort of evil company who's working to make men, to change gender roles, to undermine the traditional family, starting with the frogs. That's the idea, you fucking idiot. Well, the thing is that at the base of that claim, they're putting chemicals in the water that turns the frogs gay. That's based on truth. There's a paper that has studied frogs exposed to a pesticide called atrazine, in which the exposure to the pesticide has caused mutations in their gender expression and led to cases where they've changed sex or become sterilized. Now that's a great example of capitalism at its worst. This fucking pesticide is used because it increases crop yields and it's therefore increases profits. And any damage to the people or the environment in which it's expressed, that's an externality that they don't have to deal with. That is just a perfect parable of capitalist exploitation. But he has to fucking frame it around cultural anxieties and obscure the truth. The fucking capitalist motive at the heart of turning the frogs gay. You turn the frogs gay because it's cheaper to use this fucking pesticide than the one that's not going to turn the frogs gay. That's it. It doesn't require lizards or Jews or aliens with a 10,000-year plan to get rid of gender. But that's the whole lure of the thing, because you're telling somebody a story they want to hear, and the part they want to hear is that they don't have to do anything, that they just have to keep watching. Why do they want the frogs gay? Tune in next week. We'll reveal why they want the frogs gay. Oh, it turns out that there were these reptilians who wanted to make the frogs gay. But then there's this other new random race of reptilians who have now come to Earth and are now fighting for control using false flag attacks. You can embroider the thing forever, and it'll always be an entertaining journey, and you'll never get any closer to actually understanding politics, coming together with fellow citizens to fucking try to make the world a better place. You will just amuse yourself to death. And I will leave you guys with one chilling note. I know I just said that conspiracy theory is the province of powerless people who need a way to cope with and express their powerlessness. But there is one way that conspiracy theory can actually be mobilized to political goals as opposed to just the observation of politics playing out. And that is, this takes us back to the 20s. This takes us back to the rise of fascism. Because right-wing populism requires an analysis of social dysfunction and an enemy just as much as as leftism does. But that enemy can't be capital, as we've discussed, because they're committed to maintaining capital. That's their path to power. They can get the people into the streets by denouncing the material conditions of their lives, but they maintain the support of the elite, their money, and their freedom from police abuse by protecting capital and not pointing towards capital. And so that's where you put conspiracy theory. That's you put in the end a flex capacitor there of fascist worldview is the fucking conspiracy theory. Look at the white genocide, great replacement narrative that's powering the far right now. Okay, now every single component of what these people are claiming is a conspiracy about great replacement, about replacing the white race. These are all 201 processes powered at every point by broad global economic trends created by capitalism. and the specific decisions of the ruling class policymakers of the capitalist regimes. So all these effects, so all the stuff they're talking about, millions of people being driven from their home countries to seek economic and physical security. That also includes dropping birth rates in the West, because it's pretty well established that the degree to which you have a advanced capitalist state is the degree to which women taking control of their reproductive destinies have fewer and fewer children. That is an established connection. So these are all things that are phenomenons of capitalism one way or another and can be explained by capitalism. You got NAFTA. Climate change caused droughts. U.S.-backed coups and civil wars. And all of these things have done the same thing. All of them have created this milieu of population migration and baby gaps. But this is another case where people coming to these decisions themselves, not comparing notes in a context of class awareness, are filtering this reality through their pre-existing racial anxieties and their dreads of the other. And so when they see these things, the villain that comes up is once again one carrying out pointless destruction for inscrutable alien purposes. Because the Jews want to replace us. Why? Why do the Jews want to replace us? What does that even mean, replace us? They're here too. They're here as much as they want to be. And according to these guys, they control all of the money. Their lives are awesome. Probably couldn't really even get any better. Why? Who do they want to replace us with, and why? They're Jews. They hate your culture. They hate its rootedness. They're jealous of it, and they don't want to look at it anymore. They want to destroy it. They want to destroy a civilization that they hate because they can never be a full part of it. That's it. And so that narrative then coheres and then is expressed in that cesspool of the internet that sends these things out with no friction coming in any way from anybody else's experience or humanity. All that gets drained out of it. And it becomes now hardwired in the minds of a lot of young reactionaries in this country in a way that is now politically valent because it's being expressed by a political party, like the anti-Masons. Like, we're returning to that era because of the viral nature of memes and information over the internet. So among the leaders of these movements, there is no interest in confronting the reality that capitalism is driving us all to a breaking point. And the only way that we can defeat them, defeat the ruling class, is by uniting around our exploitation, by bringing together the expressed and exploited people of the world together and use the power of our numbers to overthrow them and to reorganize society to the benefit of all. They don't want to talk about that because although that is the only way we survive, doing it requires crossing a chasm of otherness to a person who is in some way different culturally, religiously, ethnically. And the mere thought of making oneself vulnerable in that way, of attempting to make the leap of faith and express the vulnerability to try to create solidarity across these divisions that, though arbitrary, are in the minds of someone conditioned in 20th century America incredibly powerful. Because that thought is too horrifying to contemplate, these people have to turn it into a cabal of reptiles and globalists who are using this inhuman mass of people who aren't as good as us, actually, because if you look at FBI crime statistics and IQ, blah, 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 and they've severed their connections to other people because they would rather live in the fantasy. All right, well, that's it, I think. I hope some of this made sense. If this might have been divided into two parts, I'm not sure. But thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the funny pages.